So it's 4:30 now, but we want to just give a little bit of space for folks who might be having a challenge to log on. So we're going to give it maybe another 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes before we start. Try to read those last lines on the slides. And we'll get started here pretty shortly. But we're so grateful for all of you who are taking the time to be here today, to hear some great stories and just to share some time together. So thank you for being here.
Hi, Judy.
Hi,
How you doing?
doing fine. Denise, it's good to see you.
Hi, Anne.
Hi, Eileen. Good to see you.
Yeah, same here.
Hi, Anne from Pammy. Hi.
Oh, hi, Pammy and Tracy and lovely.
Hi, Anne.
And
Tracy. Hi,
It's the Anne fan club.
it's a Tails fan club.
There you go.
Yeah.
hi, Tracy.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, is that Darcy?
Yeah, hi
No,
Tracy.
Eileen.
And
Eileen.
hi Eileen.
Hi, Eileen. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to connect on Zoom.
Yes.
It's the best way to-
Roxanne.
Hi, Ella.
Oh, we're getting happy.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I didn't realize I was going to be on the video. I didn't put makeup on. My God. Hi everybody. Hi
Is that
Roxanne.
Bonita?
Yes, it is.
Ah.
Is that Connie Marie?
I think so. Hi Roxanne.
I need to go get as beautiful as everyone on this screen here. Oh my God. I don't know what I was thinking. I
I think you were thinking you were
Beautiful.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you were thinking you were beautiful.
no, I wasn't. I was thinking I wasn't going to be seen.
Well, I like seeing you.
So do I.
Watching. The
I'm
watching.
I'm very excited.
Oh, we are so glad that you're here to see you all. Just a couple quick housekeeping things from the technical world standpoint. If you don't want to have your video on, that is completely okay. And how you turn it off, usually if you're on a PC, if you go to the lower left of your screen or sometimes the upper right, you'll see a little icon of a camera that says stop video. If you click that, it will turn your video off or on. The other thing is we're going to mute you all with a lot of love.
Barbara.
You will know that you are muted. If you look at your picture on the screen, you'll see a little icon on the bottom left, a red thing. It looks like a microphone with a slash through it. And that simply shows that you are currently muted. And we do that just so we can listen and hear the storytellers a little bit better. And so at the end of our storytelling time tonight, we will open it up for questions for the tellers from all of you. You'll be invited to either put those questions or comments in the chat box, or we will invite you to unmute yourselves. If you scroll your mouse over your image, there's a little blue button that says mute or unmute, and you would just click that. So we're so glad that you are here today, and I'm going to invite Anne to unmute and with her opening words.
And we're not going to chat during the performance either. That's afterwards. We're not going to chat either. Okay. I'm glad that we're all still here. I'm really glad to be with you all. And I cannot pretend that these times are not trying my soul. So in that spirit, I want to take a moment to just collect ourselves and be aware of ourselves to get ready to hear these stories. Thank you. The theme is waiting. I'm going to introduce each of the tellers with a quote of their choosing. And after the telling, you're invited to stay, as Aaron said. After everyone is told, you can unmute yourselves and whistle or applause, do whatever you want to do after everyone is told. So the first teller I would like to introduce has a quote, an anonymous one. Often the task at hand seems difficult. It's not, it's just unfamiliar. This man will be telling a story called, Funny Business, huh? Welcome, Ty Fance.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann. That's great. I appreciate that very much. And yeah. So a lot of my stories are reflective. And what I find is I sped through my early life so much, and then going back and looking at it, I'm starting to find some really pretty cool moments that I'd love to share. So this one goes back. For instance, as I was a kid, I used to watch comedy variety shows like Red Skelton, the Ed Sullivan Show, the Carol Burnett Show. I used to watch those with my mom, who was this down to earth, no nonsense kind of lady, but she had this big sense of humor and this big full laugh. I used to watch, I would sit there in her room on this pea soup green shag carpet. It was very comfortable. My legs crossed, and within my reach was my favorite snack to go to, milk and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. She would sit on her bed near the top next to the headboard, legs crossed, dressed in a house jacket and a dress, and always hair up in those big, thick, pink rollers, glasses, cigarette in hand. And her favorite go-to snack was peanut brittle. And we'd just sit there and watch these shows, laughing, And I remember one time we were watching the Flip Wilson show, and she laughed so hard that water spit out her mouth, and she was still choking and laughing. And I was so impressed by that moment that I said to her, I said, Mom, when I get old enough, I want to be a comedian. I want to do that. She paused and looked at me and said, boy, you got to be funny to be on the Flip Wilson show. I'm funny. I just need some jokes. And then she turned and looked at me as parents do when they're about to say some advice that's going to be life-changing. She said simply, boy, forget about being funny. What you need to do is get yourself out of school, get a good paying job. That's what you need to do. It was definitely life-changing for me, because at that moment, I realized I would never speak of being a comedian again. So I did what I was supposed to do. I went through high school, got good grades, ended up getting a scholarship to go to college. I went to college, graduated, and I was pretty proud of my accomplishment, but not as much as my mom was, because I overheard her on the phone with one of her friends. Mayor Bynum, did I tell you Tyrone graduated college? Oh, that boy, and got a job over at Rockwell International as an engineer. Boy, whoo, I knew he could do it. I knew he could do it. But that impact that I had when I saw Flip Wilson make my mom laugh so hard, it never left me. I mean, it was something about that. It was the idea of bringing laughter to a human being just seemed so important and so powerful at the time. It seemed like a superpower. And I wanted that. I never forgot it. Even though I went to college and graduated and started working, I just never forgot it. And I think it was about 2 years into college that I went to my first open mic for comedians. It was at the Hollywood Improv. And the open mic is where anybody who thinks they're willing to get up and entertain, you could just put your name in a hat and they would pull it out and you get to go on stage. I'd never done it before and I just thought I could, right? But I'd never done it on purpose. So I remember writing my name on this napkin and folding it up and then I put it in the hat. And the guy, the MC was very, very cool about how he brought you up. He would do all this talk about the club and then he would get them all hyped up and then introduce you. Well, he'd already pulled 2 names from the hat. And with each time he went in to pull a name out, my heart just stopped because I wasn't sure that I could do it. Well, the 3rd time he pulled out a name, and I remember when I had written it down, I was so nervous, it was kind of scribble scrabble, but he pulled out a name and he goes, "All right, welcome to the stage, the comedy stylings of Jerome France." And I paused. I'm like, wait, that's me. So I get up, get on stage. I fumbled with the mic. I finally got it out of the stand and I looked around the crowd. That was, man, my heart was just beating 100 miles an hour. And I say, well, well, my name is not Jerome Fans. My name is Tyrone Fans. Crickets. I quickly jumped into the second joke. On the way down there, I saw a dog, right? It was on the side of the street. It was licking a Coke can. And I was thinking to myself, he's probably going, man, I wish this was full and I had a hamburger. Silence. I did several other jokes I thought were funny, nothing. And that it was really interesting because I looked into the audience and I could tell the audience were going, man, I can't believe this guy's not that funny. But see, they gave you 3 minutes. So I had to stay up there. And about 2 minutes and 45 seconds into this routine, I paused, looked at the audience and said, man, I suck. Boom, laughter. No, I really suck. Boom, another row of laughter. Matter of fact, this was funnier at home. Boom, laughter. Yeah, in my closet. Boom. I said goodnight and I got off stage. And I remember thinking, man, for 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I was in a horrible hell. But that last 15 seconds was orgasmic. Yep. And I wanted more. So I began to hit the open mics and did it for like 2 years, started to build a reputation. And about 3 years into it, something dramatic happened that caused me to have to reevaluate my career. I got laid off. And about a month in, I started thinking about it and I decided, well, I better pick something that's financially and emotionally stable. I picked comedy. I was okay with it, but my mom wasn't. Comedy? Boy, I know you done lost your mind. Mom, I could do it. I've been doing it for a minute. Yeah, funny business, huh? I don't know. I really felt her disappointment at that time. But at that, I was old enough to start thinking that I should say this. I didn't know it at the time, but as a parent now, I get it. She wasn't so concerned about the fact that I chose comedy. She was more concerned about whether or not I'd be able to take care of myself. And I got to tell you this, at that point, I really wanted her support. But I couldn't wait for it. I had to move on. So I did. So I did comedy all over, different places. They used to have these open mics all over the place. I was there. If you had an open mic and I heard about it, boom, I showed up. And then what I did is I found out that if you wanted to be a comedian in the 80s, you had to hang out where the best was. So I began to work the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. It was, I remember this one Wednesday night I was there. And what happened is they have 3 rooms. They have the main room where all the professional comedians work. Then they had the original rooms where the up and coming guys work. And then they had the belly room where all the amateurs work. Well, I was in the amateur room that night and I did my little set. Got some laughs, not as many as I'd hoped, but it was good. Then I went downstairs to the main room to catch the professionals. Now, the thing about that is, if you were a comedian back there, they would let you watch the main room show for free, but there were rules. You had to stand in the back and be quiet. The back wasn't the best place. You can hear, but sometimes you couldn't see. Plus, it was the pathway to the bathroom, which I was reminded of several times. Actually, every time the ding dong door opened, I would know the bathroom was happening. So I'm in the back. A bunch of other comedians are sitting over to my left. I don't know them. It's kind of cliquish. They know each other. They didn't know me. So we weren't really talking. But we were in the back. And then Franklin Njai was on stage. He's a guy from Car Wash. You look up the movie. He's a really funny guy, smart. And I'm really digging his style because he's smooth. And I'm listening. And right about this time, that gaggle of comics start getting loud. So I get a little bit rambunctious. And I'm annoyed because the rule is shut up and be over here and be cool. So I try to will them to shut up with my look. So I look at them. It didn't work. Now I'm annoyed. I can't do nothing because there's a lot of them, just me. so I'm like, ugh. Then right about 5 seconds after that moment, the gaggle started to part like the Red Sea did for Moses, right? And this dark figure started to walk toward me. I'm figuring by the way they high-fiving each other and getting all antsy, that this must be some woman trying to go to the bathroom and they all checking her out, right? Well, I'm really still annoyed to a level that I'm starting to get a little belligerent. And now what I mean by that is in my way belligerent, not really aggressive. You know how when somebody's trying to catch you off on the freeway, they get in your lane last minute and you go, no, I'm not doing that. And you inch up a little bit to keep them out. Well, I decided to stand my ground. And I figure whoever this is, they're going to have to ask me to move for them to go by because it's crowded back there and there's a narrow walkway. So I stand up real firm, looking like I'm not even noticing the person. They get real close. Then I turn and look and I see who it is. It's not a woman. It's some dude, thin with an afro. So I look a little closer and I can't move. I can't move. I can't even talk. My feet are like I'm standing in cement. I'm really paralyzed here emotionally because I turn and finally I get some words out and I go, holy crap, you Richard Pryor. Holy crap, you're Richard Pryor. Now, let me explain that reaction. When I started doing comedy, there was 3 levels of performing. There was comics, there's comedians, and then there was Richard Pryor. Holy, 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 holy. And I'm standing there, and he's right next to me, and I can't even get more words out, right? I kept going, you're Richard Pryor, you're Richard Pryor. And he said, Chump, I know who I am, but only he didn't say Chump. And he said, and you need to get the hell out the way, so I pee on myself. And he didn't say hell. So, and I'm like, you do that little dance thing where you try to get out of people's way and you're moving the same way. And we kept doing that for a second. Oh man, I was flustered. Then I finally shifted up against the wall as if somebody was trying to stab me. And I just moved back so he can move by. Now, as he goes by, he steps on my left foot. And the pain of that brings me back to reality as he walks past me. And I'm like, oh my God. I tell people when they find out that I ran into Richard Pryor, and they ask me, was that the highlight of your comedy career? Running into Pryor like that and meeting him? I'll give you this. It was definitely a moment, all right? A big moment. And then I had the other moments where I performed at Punchline in San Francisco, at the Comedy Store, at the Ice House. And I actually did a couple of television comedy shows. But my best moment, or my most memorable moment, happened in a small 1-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles on Somerset Street. I was standing in the kitchen of this tiny 1-bedroom apartment, and I overheard a conversation. Girl, did I tell you that Ty is a comedian? Yeah, he's been on a couple of shows. He won some competitions. And he's funny. I knew he could do it. I just knew he could do it.
Thank you, Ty.
Waiting for that confirmation from her, I didn't ask for it, but she gave it to me. I sure loved her for it.
Right, sometimes we're waiting and we forget we're waiting, but when it comes, oh, beautiful, Ty, thank you. Okay, our next teller, her quote is from Alice Walker. Blackness is not where whiteness wanders off to die, but that's like the dark matter between stars and galaxies in the universe that ultimately holds it together. She tells 50 Shades of Waiting. Her name is Dorothy Randall Gray.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Anne. It's such a pleasure and a joy to listen and be able to share, and also be able to access the part of my brain which is rarely used, and that is the part that memorizes things. I don't even remember my poetry. So this is just for you. And I said, let me remember some of these things as I remember all kinds of things. And so I wanted to share with you what I call 50 Shades of Waiting. And I'd like to start with something that we're all familiar with, which is a dictionary, okay? So I'm gonna share with you this definition of Webster's dictionary, waiting, okay? And it's a waiting is to stay in a place until an expected event happens, until someone arrives, until it is your turn to do something, or to not do something until something else happens, or to remain in a state in which you expect or hope that something will happen. Well, that is the definition under which slaves were operating, where they were told, hey, this earthly realm is something you just have to expect, just have to accept. But there's a better place, there's a better realm in heaven. If you just wait and accept who and how you are, you can get there. So they were waiting. And I think about that definition and about the expectation of hope and something better, and the connection with the belief that, yeah, there's a better place. It's not here, so just stay where you are. Don't do anything different. That definition alone, used by the slave masters, helped the slaves, some of them, to stay where they are and decide, hey, I can wait for a better place. So they were waiting. Another shade of waiting, you know, we read about slippers that are waiting by the bed. So I think, hey, you know, maybe they waited by the bed, but maybe they had no choice. Maybe they would rather be somewhere else. I also think about songs. Music is very much a part of my life. And when I do my workshops, I always use music. I use the lyrics as prompts for writing. So in my thoughts about waiting, I came up with the songs that I know, that I love and I connected with. The first was Ruby and the Romantics, who sang, "Our day will come and we'll have everything." Okay, that's cool, Ruby. What about the Supremes? "Can't hurry, love. No, you just have to wait." All right, you just have to wait. Well, then we have Michel Legrand, who wrote that incredible song, "If it takes forever, I will wait for you." Well, more thoughts about waiting and that idea of how it shows up in songs that are around me and around everyone's life. And the songs are messages that tell you things, just like the message was given to the slaves. It's given to us in terms of ourselves and our waiting for love or waiting for what we want to have happen in our lives and just waiting. So I'm thinking of another saying that says, if you are waiting to write, you are not a writer, you're a waiter. So I'm writing and writing and not waiting to write in this time. And there's a statistic that I read, and it says the average American spends an average of 43 days waiting. 43 days a year just waiting. So I'm thinking, what if there was the United Bank of Waiting, and you could make deposits and withdrawals from the United Bank of Waiting? What if you could withdraw some time to spend with a friend who is living his or her last days? What if you could deposit the days that you spend playing games on your cell phone, watching the news, or waiting in traffic? I think about, and I wonder, how would you use that time if you did get it? If you were able to withdraw it from the United Bank of Waiting, how would you spend it? Or maybe you would just rely on something else, something that says there'll always be enough time. So I'm thinking about waiting, and I had a lot of thoughts and stories. But I want to tell you this one story. I have two stories. I'll tell you this one, and it's about my rabbi. So my rabbi arrived at the airport in New York, and he was at the airport waiting and waiting for hours and hours. Finally, a driver showed up, and with his mouth full of sorry, and apologized so profusely. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I'm so sorry. So when Rabbi was instructing us, as he always did, he says, so I figured, maybe Jesus Christ did come back, but he was at the airport and nobody went to pick him up. So I think about waiting in terms of life and in terms of how we're living in this time of COVID. And I ask myself, what am I waiting for? I'm waiting to sit in the lap of live music, to have the saxophone sex me, to have the piano play on the keys of my life, to have the violins pluck the strings of my spirit. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to sit close enough to the musicians to see the sweat drip down their faces so I can reach into my bosom and pull out a perfumed, embroidered hanky and just hand it to them. Yeah, baby. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the lines to disappear at Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. I'm waiting to stop eating and eating and eating and trying to feed a hunger that I have no name for. I'm waiting to have somebody smile at me. I'm waiting to be able to use my favorite lipsticks and have people see it. I'm waiting for the Ruby Slipper, Plum Blossom, and my favorite, I don't drink cheap wine. Now, I don't know how they fit all those words at the bottom of the lipstick container, but they did. So my favorite was, I don't drink cheap wine. I'm waiting for people to see my lipstick, to see and hear me, see the smile, see the lipstick, see the glow, see what else my face looks like. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for people to gather at my home again, so we can laugh too loud and drink too much and eat all this food and have leftovers, that I eat the next day and the next day after that and don't have to cook. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for the 14-year-old student girl in my juvenile detention class. I'm waiting for her to be released to a home where someone cares about her. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to visit my only sister who's in Atlanta, waiting to visit with my nephews who are growing older without me. I'm waiting to get on a plane and fly to Brooklyn and Bali and Cape Cod and not have to fear that I won't be coming back. I'm waiting for a good sense infection to take hold of those people who don't believe in wearing masks. I'm waiting for a cure for cancer and injustice. I'm waiting for refrigerated trucks to hold ice cream and milk instead of bodies. When my mother passed, I went to her house and I went through her things, and I found all these gifts, some unopened gifts, and a blouse that was still wrapped in the tissue that it came in. So maybe she was waiting beyond forever for an unhurried love, or for her day to come. I'm wearing that blouse right now so that it will no longer be waiting. Thank you.
Marvel.
Oh,
Marvel.
Dorothy, thank you. Um, uh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Dorothy, thank you. You know, I love that you went to the dictionary and just started riffing on that. When I went to the dictionary, I also got that waiting is also watching. Watching. You covered that. Watching for the time when we will put on the blouse, and hopefully it will be before we. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dorothy. Our next teller, I'm going to introduce with her quote, and it's one I'm sure you've heard. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. She tells a story called Identity Perplexity, and her name is Judy Francis. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you. I'd like to start by just a word with these troubling times of hatred and all the difficulties we've been seeing, to say that I'm waiting for a time where we can get back to communication and love and caring for each other, rather than cancel culture and animosity. And that's all I have to say on that matter. So I'll get into my identity perplexity. I have to be grateful to the Ku Klux Klan for my wonderful upbringing in Southern California. My father was one of two doctors that started the first clinic for Black people in Beaumont, Texas, where I was born. My parents were shocked to look out one evening and see this wonderful Christian symbol burning on their lawn. My father, who was uninitiated in the ways of the South, he was brought up in Southern California, went and got his shotgun and ran the Klan away. My mother, a Texan, was horrified and afraid. And she convinced him that as soon as possible, they needed to pack up and leave Texas. We moved in 1945, January of 1945, we moved to Los Angeles, to the Wilshire area of Los Angeles, which was all white at the time. My mother went to enroll my brother in school, and the principal had the audacity to tell her that she did not want any pickaninnies in her school. There was another school that was close by. This was like waving a red in front of a bull. my mother fought it through the school system and won. And my brother was the first Black student at Wilton Place Elementary School. He initially he had a rough time, but everything worked out. And by the time I got there 5 years later, I had no problem. It still was not very diverse, but I did have friends of different ethnic backgrounds, Armenian, Italian, Jewish. And we got along fine. We played, we shared lunches. There was no problem there. Ironically, that when there was a problem, when I went to junior high school at 11, and it was a very diverse junior high school, not only racially, but socioeconomically. And I was 11 years old, like I said, and I was immediately bullied by 3 girls who happened to be Black. And they taunted me for having friends that were of different races. They said Judy was a white girl's name and that I talked like a white girl. So my immediate response was just waiting to find out how I needed to talk. So I'd go home in front of the mirror and practice body language and everything. Say, what you talking about? You better not do that. I got good. Yeah, we call it code switching these days. And then at one point, after school, one of these 3 girls actually attacked me physically. I had never been in a fight, never have since. But she knocked me down and I got so angry. I was like a crazy girl. And since I was a tomboy, I wasn't weak, and I got the best of her. And after that, bullying stopped. But it also changed my whole personality from this shy 11-year-old to somebody that was a whole lot different. I got self-assured, etc. But by the time I got to high school, I got really involved in learning as much as I could about Black history and my background and the history of my people. And I gained a very, very deep respect for the achievements and the sacrifices and the realization that I didn't get there alone. When I was the other thing in elementary school is that my closest neighbors were Japanese American, Nisei, and they had been, they were born in the relocation centers of World War II. And their parents wanted them to keep in touch with Japanese culture, so they went to Japanese schools on Saturday. And before we could play, we would have to do their lessons, so I would do them with them. And one time we were practicing counting ichi, ni, sanchi, goro, and the mother came in and looked at me very strangely and then left. And as soon as she left, my friend said, when our parents come in, shut up, because if you pronounce better than we do, we get in trouble. And that's how I learned that I really had this interest in foreign language and foreign cultures. When I got to college, I majored in French and minored in Spanish, and I wanted to be an interpreter. But just like we've noted in this waiting, you're waiting to develop this career. Sometimes things change. They don't come out exactly like you expected to. I went to France and studied there for 9 months. And I came back at UCLA. This was right after the first Watts riot. And they started this program called the Jordan Tutorial Program for kids from the one high school in Watts, which was Jordan High School. And I signed up as a volunteer to tutor and fell in love with teaching because these students that I dealt with were just wonderful. I mean, incredible. So I became a teacher. I was a high school teacher of French and Spanish and English as a foreign language. And the first high school I taught was very much like the high school I went to. It was very middle class, multiracial. But at that time, they were integrating the schools all over the nation, and by busing, LA was no different, except that LA included trying to make their faculties more diverse. So they had a program where they sent teachers to other schools, and I was one of those. And they sent me out to Van Nuys High School, which at the time did not have a diverse faculty. And the year before, they had had a big riot, which was in the newspapers, there were helicopters and everything. And But we only had 5% Black kids. So the riot was between Latinos and foreign students versus the white students. And I was seen as sort of the intermediate person. So I was able to really get the kids to talk to each other and made a big difference. But actually, from the time I started teaching, I knew I wasn't going to stay in it because while I loved teaching, the school system was making it more and more difficult. They were making class sizes bigger. They were making more extra duties for teachers. So I started going to law school at night. And I enjoyed that. It was a lot of work. I was a single parent with two small kids, working full time, going 3 nights a week. So it was tough. Right before the bar exam in 1979, I quit teaching and I resigned. And my mother thought I was crazy because she said, not everybody passes the bar in the first time. Luckily for me, it did work, and I passed the bar, and I started practicing family law. And once again, I knew I probably wasn't going to stay in law. Well, I saw an ad for the State Department, and they were looking for Foreign Service officers, and they were giving the exam. And I applied for that and went through the whole thing, including the background exam, and got my top secret clearance. In January of 1983, I was on my way on a plane to Washington, D.C. for my training as a Foreign Service officer. Well, there, I ended up staying in that career. That was my third and last career. And I stayed for 24 years. 22 of those were spent overseas, working at various embassies from anywhere from 2 to 4 years each time. And it was the perfect career for me. I was in Senegal, West Africa, and it's 95% Muslim. And there were certain things that I had to wait and see what the culture demanded. I would get invited to people's homes for dinner. And before we actually sat down to dinner, all the men were in the living room and the women were elsewhere. And I was always escorted into the living room with the men because I was an American diplomat. And it took some getting used to at first, I was waiting to see, how am I supposed to act, whatever. I finally did get used to it. In Ghana, I was at a party and it was all Ghanaians. I was the only American there. And a toddler saw me and screamed and ran to her mother. And the mother said, "Oh, please don't be offended. She's afraid of white people." I'm like, white people? And then the Ghanaian man next to me said, "Yes, some of our children just aren't used to being around white people." I mean, I've come all the way to Africa to find out I'm white. Well, after I lived in several countries in Africa, I found out that their definition is much more cultural than it is racial. It's not really a racial definition, though I heard that several times. When I got to the Congo, the embassy declared that we all had to have visas to South Africa in case of a medical emergency, because that was the closest country that had excellent facilities. Well, that's when apartheid was still in effect. So we had to get our visas on a separate piece of paper. I got mine back. It had my picture and my name in bold letters, and underneath it said, "Honorary white person." Oh, I've arrived. I was most amused and perplexed by it, but they explained that was because I would be sent to the best hospitals and not ones that were relegated to Black people. Unfortunately, that was the system at that time. The other thing is that I'd have to wait for each country to get to know the customs and get used to the customs. One of the things about Africa is that political correctness is not part of their system. They'll say, if you ask them, "Oh, what does so-and-so look like?" "Oh, it's the little fat one over there." oh, it's the skinny lady with the scrawny hair. You know, I said, oh, okay. My job as administrative, as management counselor also included the hiring and firing of local employees. And at one embassy, I got a call from the ambassador's wife saying that she wanted me to fire the chauffeur, the ambassador's chauffeur, saying that he spoke inappropriately. So I looked into it and, did an investigation, and I found out that she had overheard a conversation between the chauffeur and the cook. And he had said, oh, Madam Ambassador, she enjoyed her vacation. She ate well. She now has nice big buttock like African woman. Well, for him, he didn't know he was overheard, for one thing, but for him, it was a compliment. For the ambassador's wife, not so much so. I was able to save his job, but I did have to take him off of the ambassador's detail. The other thing that happened that was shocking for me as an American, I went home one day and the guard there said to me, oh, and he's one of the few that really had an accent that was difficult to understand. He said, Madam, lady, she come go and get me. I asked him to repeat it. Lady, she come go and get me. Finally, I understood him to say the lady, she came and left and I didn't get her name. And I said, oh, please, in the future, try to get the name, but can you describe her? He said, yes, big fat black lady. I said, Rose, okay. But, okay. The other thing, that waiting was not just in foreign countries. I'd have to wait to find out what the latest thing was in the United States that was going on because of political correctness. When I was a child, I was either Negro or colored. By the time I was at the university, it was either Black or Afro-American. While I was overseas, the term came in as African American. And so, I'd have to find out exactly what term to use when I got back. Not just for race, but it went to occupations and, everything else we changed. The other thing that was different about the way we think and the way the rest of the world thinks is this idea that a Black person, we go by the one drop rule, which is really a slave master's rule to extend his holdings. And anybody can be white is white, but if you find out they had a great grandfather that was Black, they're considered Black. That's why we had this concept of passing. But that's not shared with a lot of countries. Their definition of Black is not the same. Also, certain things that we hold dear, like the Americans have the common belief in some of the individualism, and we believe in youth and innovation. And other cultures are just the opposite. So I was always waiting to find out just what the attitudes were in different places. The important thing is that, whether, regardless of the country or where I was, you find a lot of commonality. The people do care about each other in most places. They are very accepting and helpful. So I think we have a lot more in common than we have differences. But in the final analysis, isn't it the differences that add the spice? I'm no longer waiting for others to define me or to give me a name or a description. I'm perfectly happy with who I am and what I believe in. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thanks so much, Judy.
Okay.
Judy had quite a life. I can't believe she did lawyer, teacher. Okay, the next person I'd want to introduce you with his quote, it's from Charles Schulz. Don't worry about the world coming to an end today. It's already tomorrow in Australia. The title of his story is Mi Primo Alex, or My Cousin Alex. His name is Carlos Kotkin. Thank you, Carlos.
Hi, can you hear me, Ann? Do I sound okay? Can see me? All right. Hi, everybody. Just a quick FYI, this background is the background we have when we're at the Malibu Swim Club doing the show lives. So if you remember that, that's what this is. Imagine that you're having soup right now and you're looking at the ocean and you're asking if this seat is taken. All right. Okay, so my story has a prologue. I have a cousin named Alex who lives in Mexico. I have a lot of relatives in Mexico on my mother's side of the family. I speak Spanish, not perfectly, but I speak it. My name is Carlos. Of course, I hablo español. So my cousin Alex is about my age. We've always gotten along. He was living with his wife and kids in Mexico City, and then he moved a few years ago to Mexicali, Mexico, right on the California border, within driving distance of Los Angeles. The reason I know Mexicali is within driving distance of Los Angeles is because shortly after Alex moved there, I was looking at Facebook and I saw photos of him with his family at Universal Studios. He visited Los Angeles without letting me know. Technically, I don't live in Los Angeles. I live in Santa Monica. So fair enough, I was in a completely different city. I did reach out to Alex on Facebook and I jokingly told him, next time you post pictures of yourself in Los Angeles, you should block me from being able to see them. That way, I won't know you were here. Or better yet, let me know you're here. I live in Santa Monica near the pier and the beach. Our families could have a fun day together. And Alex wrote back, he said he was sorry. He said, yes, of course. Next time he was in the area, he would definitely let me know. A few months later, I'm looking at Facebook and I see pictures of Alex with his family on the Santa Monica Pier, a 5-minute walk from where I live. So apparently one of Alex's hobbies is posting pictures on Facebook of trips he's taken to my neck of the woods so that I know for sure that he's been spending time in my neck of the woods and not reaching out. Just something he does for fun, I guess. That's fine. That's his choice. He can do that. I am also at liberty to form my own opinions about cousin Alex, which I have done, and I bet you can guess what they are. I didn't communicate with Alex after seeing his Santa Monica pictures. I haven't seen him, nothing, whatever. Forget Alex. Oddly enough, my wife does communicate with him on Facebook every year. She wishes him a happy birthday. She doesn't even know him. I don't know whose side she's on. I don't know what she's doing. My wife says that I'm being petty. Okay, be petty with me. Don't wish him a happy birthday with me. He never wishes me a happy birthday. Anyway, that's the prologue. It's kind of a long prologue, but that's it. There we have it, the prologue. Now we're in a pandemic. It's been several years since Alex posted those pictures in Santa Monica. I still haven't spoken to him. I haven't even thought of him. I've been under house arrest, as we all have. I've found that those of us who are alone wish we were with someone, and those of us who are with someone wish we were alone. Except for me, I love my wife. It's been wonderful spending every waking hour with her and our 7-year-old daughter. Not having any time to myself for over a year has been delightful. Anyway, a few months ago, I'm sitting at my desk and I get a phone call. It's a big, long number. And I can see that it's a number from somewhere in Mexico. Usually I don't pick up if I don't know who's calling, but in this case, I thought maybe it's one of my relatives in Mexico. So I answer the phone. And when I do, someone asks me how I'm doing in Spanish. ¿Cómo estás? And I don't recognize the voice. So I tell whoever I'm talking to, I say in Spanish, I'm sorry, I don't know who this is. And the man laughs and says, all in Spanish, this whole conversation is in Spanish. He says, come on, you know who this is. Think of all your cousins. You can figure it out. He sounds vaguely like my cousin Alex. I hadn't spoken to him in so long, I couldn't remember exactly what his voice sounded like. I took a guess. I asked if it was Alex, and he said yes. My cousin Alex was calling me. Alex tells me he's at LAX. He's at the airport. Another surprise visit, but this time he's telling me while he's in town. He had just flown in, and he told me he flew in with $25,000 in cash. Why? I have no idea. He said he was only allowed to bring $10,000 in cash across the border. He didn't know that, and now they were confiscating $15,000. And I'm thinking, why would he, what is he doing with $25,000 on a plane or anywhere? There has never been a scenario in my life where I needed to walk around with 25,000. I ask Alex what any of this has to do with me, and he hands the phone to an airport official who asked me to confirm that Alex is my cousin and wants to know when was the last time I saw him. I told him in Spanish, yes, Alex is my cousin, and it's been a few years. I thought of how he had gone to the pier and not reached out to me, but I decided not to bring that up. The airport official then makes two requests. First, please calm my cousin Alex down. And second, please tell him to stop offering a bribe because that will get him into more trouble. Then the official hands the phone back to Alex. And I say to Alex in Spanish, I'm going to tell you what the guy just told me, but I'm going to tell you in English. Alex speaks English because I don't want to mess this up. It's serious. Alex says, no, primo, tienes que hablar en español. He tells me I have to speak in Spanish, which I thought was strange, but I did it. I tell him not to bribe the guy. And also you can't bring more than $10,000. You just can't. My cousin Alex tells me he understands, but if he pays a fine of $1,500, they will release the rest of the money to him. He asked me if I would lend him the $1,500 and he'll pay me right back. I tell him there's two problems. One, there's a pandemic and I'm not going anywhere, certainly not to the airport. And two, I don't have $15 to lend him, $1,500. And Alex immediately responds, I can't believe you're my cousin. I can't believe my own cousin is doing this to me. I wanted to surprise you. I was going to give you something nice for helping me out, and you treat me like this. That triggered me. That all of the stress and anxiety and tension of the past year that had been waiting to come out came out. I spoke in English. I released all of my anger and frustration and resentment. I told him, you went to the pier. You were 5 minutes away from me and you didn't call. You must be kidding. You have to be joking right now. I don't see you in I don't know how many years, and out of the blue, you call me from the airport asking for money? You didn't call when you were at the pier? And Alex hangs up. Alex is gone. I'm still upset. I'm charged. And I'm thinking, Alex is obviously not who I thought he was. I don't know the specifics, but he's clearly some sort of criminal mastermind involved in money laundering or who knows what. And I've just made him angry for leaving him high and dry. And once he gets out of prison, he's probably going to come after me. We're going to have to move. That's what I was thinking. We're going to have to move. Or he's innocent. He's genuinely in trouble. Just in case, I texted his father and I told his father, you should probably call Alex. He's at the airport in Los Angeles. I think he might need help. His father texts me back right away saying, no, Alex is at home in Mexicali. It must have been some sort of misunderstanding. And my immediate thought is, okay, Alex is definitely a criminal. There's no misunderstanding. His dad just doesn't know his son is Al Capone, or his dad is part of the criminal operation. I wasn't sure what to think. I called my mom and I told her what happened. She paused and then she said, that wasn't your cousin Alex. That was a scam. The exact same thing happened to your Uncle Pablo and your Aunt Georgina and your cousin Berta. It's common. My mom asked me for the phone number of the person who called, and I gave it to her. she recognized the prefix as being from Guadalajara, which is nowhere near Mexicali, where Alex lives. So it wasn't Alex, it was a random Mexican phone scammer. And I told him, you went to the pier and you didn't call me. I unloaded on whoever this was, unloaded on him. When I told my wife, her reaction was, so a phone scammer hung up on you because he couldn't take it anymore. That sounds about right. It's been a long pandemic, a lot's happened. Even though it wasn't Alex, I still feel like I was able to get things off my chest. In the end, it was actually cathartic. If you're feeling stressed about things, I highly recommend having a scammer call you and dumping all of your baggage on them. It's a great exercise. If I could, I would send this phone scammer some flowers. I obviously can't, but what I can do is send everybody who's listening virtual flowers and virtual hugs. And I look forward to the day when I can see you all again in person at the Malibu Swim Club. Thank you.
Oh, you got a load off, Carlos. You got a load off. That's great. I've done that before in my head and realized later, uh-oh, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah, it helps though, it helps.
Yeah, it also teaches you, to maybe step back a little bit, think a little bit more. Anyway, the next teller, her quote is by Reverend Lisa Meggs. That Reverend says, something has to die in order for the newness to take place. Her story is Waiting for Raymond. Her name is Roxanne Reese. Welcome.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Happy birthday to my sister, Belinda. My prayer is that the hatred is stopped and that we become more kinder, more loving, and more understanding to each other. As Anne said, the title of my story is Waiting for Raymond. Raymond Jenkins was my kind of handsome, tall, dark, with luscious, kissable lips. Raymond had style and was voted best dresser and most popular his senior year at Dunbar High School in Washington, D.C. To this day, I don't know why Raymond asked me to be his prom date, because back then I was a very shy 10th grader. But I immediately said yes to his invite without thinking about what I was going to wear. Oh, you see, this was like my first date, and I was going to a prom with Raymond Jenkins. I was excited and ran home and told my older sister, Belinda, that Raymond Jenkins asked me to be his prom date. There was no money for a new dress. So Belinda pulled out of the closet a long baby blue gown that had been with a matching overcoat that had been wrapped in plastic since she wore it to her boyfriend Teddy's prom 2 years ago. It wasn't a perfect fit, but it was nice. The day of Raymond's prom, I went up to my Aunt Carol's wig shop. She let me use one of her hair pieces. It was called a fall, which is long human hair that has a comb sewn in the center of it. You attach it to your scalp, and to hide where your hair ends and the wig begins, you can use a tiara or a headband. I had a beige pleather headband with a big bow in the center of it. Aunt Carol adorned my fall with a cluster of curls, and I hurried home to get dressed. I was sitting in the living room waiting for Raymond when my younger brother Johnny started teasing me. Roxanne got stood up, Roxanne got stood up, which is what I was beginning to feel like because Raymond was late, about an hour and a half late. Finally, there was a knock on the door, It was Raymond standing there in his powder blue tuxedo that was trimmed in black, his black bow tie, his white ruffled shirt, and his black platform shoes. He was looking good, but making no excuses for his tardiness. And no corsage. Isn't it protocol to give your prom date a corsage? When we arrived at La Plaza, where Raymond's prom was being held, we walked into the grand ballroom, and there was so much excitement. Seniors and their dates were laughing, dancing, taking prom pictures, and passing around flasks and water bottles that had been filled with wine or some brown alcohol. And the dresses, ooh, the dresses were beautiful. Raymond set me at a huge table with some other seniors and their dates and said, "I'll be right back." Okay. Marvin and Vandella's song started playing over the speakers. Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? And everybody from my table jumped up and hit the floor. Then Chubby Checker's song came on. Come on, baby, let's do the twist. And everybody was twisting the night away. Then Sam and Dave's song came on. Hold on, I'm coming. Hold on. I turned to look for Raymond. I wanted to dance. I love to dance. Whenever I danced, I felt like my shyness disappeared. I wanted to do the boogaloo and the jerk, which is what I was beginning to feel like. All of a sudden, Raymond was in my ear. "You want something to drink?" "Yes, please." Raymond set a plastic cup on the table filled with watered down punch and said, "I'll be right back." Percy Sledge's song started playing. When a man loves a woman, and everybody was doing the slow grind. Testosterone and estrogen were all up in that grand ballroom. And I thought to myself, where's Raymond? What is he doing? Why is he leaving me sitting here all by myself? One of the girls who'd been sitting at our table earlier came over to me and said, "Are you all right?" And I gave a brave reply. "Yeah, I'm fine." But I wasn't fine. I was embarrassed. I was hurt. I was starting to feel self-conscious about what I was wearing. I felt like my baby blue gown had turned a paler shade of blue, and the curls from my hairpiece had fallen, and the bow sitting on top of my headband had come undone. I was having an emotional meltdown, and I wanted to run. I wanted to run out of that ballroom. But the shame kept me glued to my chair. In my eyesight was a couple taking their prom picture. The girl had the beauty of a young Lena Horne, and her gown shaped her body with a Mae West fit. And I said to myself, if I looked like her, Raymond wouldn't have left me sitting here all by myself. The lights started flickering, and all the seniors were leaving the grand ballroom to go home, to change their clothes, to go to all-night after prom parties. As the room thinned out, Raymond appears with his bow tie missing, his jacket swung over his shoulder, and his face and shirt poured with sweat. And I thought to myself, somebody had a good time. The ride home with Raymond was very quiet. I wanted to lash out at him in a fit of anger, but I didn't. I couldn't. I didn't feel like I had a right to. Raymond dropped me off in front of my house and sped off in his car. I ran into the house and told my sister Belinda what had happened, and she said, "What? What? Girl, you should have left his ass at the prom and caught a cab home. Why did you let him treat you like that?" And I said, "Well, maybe if I wasn't wearing your old hand-me-down dress, maybe Raymond wouldn't have treated me like that." And Belinda said, "I don't care if you were wearing a potato sack. Don't you ever allow anybody, especially a man, to treat you with disrespect. You better learn to take up for yourself." After my tears had dried, I vowed that I would never allow anybody to make me feel unworthy, insignificant, the way I felt at Raymond's prom. And as God is my witness, I'll never wear hand-me-down clothes again. 2 years later, I walked into that same grand ballroom at L'Enfant Plaza where my prom was being held. And I thought about the me that sat at that table, waiting for Raymond to ask me to dance, to take a prom picture, to validate my very existence. But during my senior year, I had my rite of passage. I had shedded most of my shyness. I was bolder. And if anyone didn't ask me to dance, I would get up and dance all by myself. But I had my boyfriend Philip with me to dance with at my prom. And Philip pinned a beautiful corsage on my tailor-made prom dress. And my well-groomed Angela Davis-like afro stood high like my crown. I was looking good and feeling like a queen, dancing the night away. Ooh, baby, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. The beginning.
And Roxanne, you still are. Thank God. Thank God.
What's up, girl?
Here we go. Our last teller, her quote is, "It's a man's world, but a woman's universe." Her title of the story is The French Quarry. Her name is Ellen Switkus. Here she is.
Thank you, Anne. Thank you, everyone. What a thrill it is to be with you all, zooming away. Here we are, zooming away. This story took place years ago. Kind of put yourself back into the early 1970s. Martha and I were college roommates. She made a vivid impression that first day in the dorms. While rolling a jumbo joint, she announced her intention to have sex with Mick Jagger. I was shocked, but you don't even know him. We were a strange pair. She was a daredevil, the daughter of an Episcopal minister. I was a chubby matzo ball from an overly protective Jewish family. She got us into trouble, I got us out. For sophomore year, she moved to France. During that time, she became fluent in all things French. So when I joined her in Europe the following summer, she set the agenda. For the most part, it was a grueling trip. Neither one of us had much money, and like many young people, we knew nothing about travel. We were two schnooks on the loose. But there was that one day when Martha really hit it out of the park. We were hitchhiking through the countryside when we came to a beautiful area in the foothills of the French Alps. This park had a crystal blue lake cupped in a rock quarry. The park was packed with people sunbathing and swimming. Many were voguing, au naturel. After all, it was France. We found a campsite by the lake. It was nestled in a grove of pine trees. The forest primeval and the stars above would shelter us through the night. With every breath, we inhaled glorious fresh air. We met a group of students. They had a houseboat, which quickly became party headquarters. Marijuana and wine were plentiful at this party. Everyone was gabbing in French. Since my French was non-existent, and I always preferred bread and chocolate to marijuana and wine, I left this party by jumping overboard. I started swimming around the lake. The sun was shining and the water sparkled. Before long, I found myself in the middle of the lake alone. Oh, I had this jewel to myself. Suddenly, the sun disappeared behind a hill. It got cloudy, then chilly, then the thunder and lightning started. Then the wind kicked up. The rain came down. I had better get out of the lake. With difficulty, I swam to the shore. I hoisted myself up on some rocks and I looked around for shelter from the storm. I saw on a hill, there was a boulder jutting out. If I could just get up to that boulder, I could huddle there and get some protection from the storm. But the rain had made everything slippery. The trail had turned to mud. I slipped and fell into a bush. The bush had thorns. The thorns were sharp. They cut me. Now my hands were bleeding. Then I couldn't move my foot. I looked down. I was no longer alone. There was a man hiding in the bushes. He had me by one ankle. He quickly grabbed the other ankle. With a fierce tug, he pulled me towards him. I was descending. I put my hands in the mud to slow my descent. I was knocked around with the path. The rocks were knocking my face. I got a loose tooth. I felt it with my tongue. I'm back in the lake, treading water. It was a hallucination, a figment of my imagination. Now, all my life, I've had night terrors, but this terror came in broad daylight, and it terrified me. Frantically, I swam back to the houseboat. I climbed up the ladder to find Martha. She was flirting with a French guy. I cried out, "We got to get out of here." She was not ready to leave the party. "Oh, relax, have some wine." "I don't want any wine. We're in danger." "Oh, stop. You're embarrassing me. You're so American." I must have been quite a sight, waving my arms frantically, my voluptuous body stuffed into a skimpy bikini. "There is no way I'm staying here tonight. Are you coming with me? I'm leaving now." A lot of back and forth between us. Finally, she agreed to leave. We hitched into town, got into a little pension, little inn. As soon as we were safely in our room, she turned to me and she said, "Okay, tell me, what is this all about?" I explained to her the storm, the man, the crime unfolding before my eyes. I told her the hallucination was a warning. She disagreed. "It's not a warning. It's your excuse, Ellen. You don't like camping. Face it, you're the petty bourgeoisie. You just want to have your nice, comfy little bed. Well, now we're trapped indoors. Are you happy now?" Then a strange look came over her face. The people on the boat had told her the week before there had been a murder at the lake. They had found the body of a young woman, but the killer was still on the loose. "Martha, let me get this straight. You find out that there is a killer out there, and yet you're willing to sleep in the woods. Are you out of your mind? Oh, don't be absurd. Absurd was one of Martha's favorite words. Nothing would have happened to us. We were surrounded by people. Then she got a sadistic look in her eye. She said, hey, maybe the killer was at the lake today and maybe he spotted you and maybe he was stalking you and maybe you picked up on his vibe. She hummed the theme from the Twilight Zone, laughed, and fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep, not that night nor the next. What happened that day at the quarry? My hallucination was so detailed and so vivid. It was like a movie unspooling before my eyes. And then to learn that a gruesome murder had happened at this very site a mere week ago. I wanted an explanation. 5 years later, while still in my 20s, my sister and I, on a lark, spent the weekend at a presumably haunted hotel in Pennsylvania near the Amish country. It was an old wreck of a place. There were these long, dark hallways and creepy stairwells. This hotel catered to women who were hoping to connect with their deceased husbands. The hotel had a staff of psychics, mostly men, who were very willing to serve as bridges to the beyond. Many of these men had an uncanny resemblance to Liberace. I went for a reading. My psychic was one of the few women on the staff. She was dowdy and middle-aged, and she kind of looked like a bureaucrat. As soon as I walked in, she looked up at me, and then her gaze continued higher and higher until she was staring straight up at the ceiling. It's extraordinary. It's just extraordinary. You have the tallest guardian angel I have ever seen. Fear nothing, for he will protect you. On the drive back home, my sister and I amused ourselves with impersonations of my guardian angel. Watch out! Be careful! Then we got to this comic goldmine of the Liberace look-alike psychics. I mean, we had giggles galore with all of this. But once the frivolity ended, a quiet voice within me awakened. I was reminded about years ago, that day at the quarry. I was reminded of how out of the blue it all seemed. For years, I waited for an explanation of what had happened. Could that explanation be I was rescued by an angel? If so, I say thank you. It's good to have friends in high places. Now, angels are prime movers in Judaism. The angel that wrestled with Jacob, an angel destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, an angel orchestrated the 10 plagues. I mean, sure, these were divine decrees coming from the Holy One, blessed be he, but it was the angels that did the wing work, leg work. We arrived home from our weekend trip. My bubby, our grandmother, was waiting for us, preparing dinner. We told her all about our time at the psychic hotel. And I was encouraged. I told her about my experiences from years ago at the quarry. And then I told her that it had seemed so mysterious at the time. But now I finally had the explanation I've been waiting for. My grandmother, my bubby, listened, and then she frowned. And then with irritation, she said, God gave you a brain, use it. It's enough with this mishigas. Stop talking nonsense. Help me peel these potatoes.
Well, my goodness, Ellen. So the potatoes got peeled. I'm glad to hear that. Everybody can unmute now if you want. And I'm going to turn it back over to Pastor Aaron, in case you want to comment or say anything, ask any questions or comment to any of the tellers, okay? Just unmute. Everybody can unmute. And then, oh, I didn't thank Pastor Aaron, who does all this tech and that wonderful show, and Tabitha, who is the right-hand person whom you always want around. So thank you, Pastor Aaron and Tabitha.
Thank you so much, Anne. So grateful for all of our storytellers. What an amazing time we had together. If you want to unmute and give a round of applause or just wave your hands in the air, we're so grateful to all of them.
Bravo.
And so we do want to make this time available to you right now for any comments or any questions that you might have. And so we invite you to unmute or to put in the chat. I'll try to draw attention to some of the chat messages, but you can also raise your hand or do an emoji, and we will try to call on you as best we can. Bonita.
Oh my goodness. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
I enjoyed it so much. The stories were so interesting. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Roxanne, for inviting me. You know, you all were telling such great stories and I wanted to know more. Ty's story, meeting Richard Pryor, was really amazing. It was funny. He stepped on his toe. I wanted to know more about what happened later. Dorothy's story about waiting was really fascinating. It was so poetic and beautiful, and it moved me in so many ways. Judy Francis, about identity, her perplexity with her identity was just really fascinating. You know, we've all been through that. And Carlos had me cracking up with the scam, because we've all been scammed, and that's just the thing to do right now. It was hilarious. And you left me wanting to know more. I want to ask all of you how the story really ended. I wanted to know, and it's too much to go into unless you can, how the story really ended. Roxanne, did you continue to be, that was just so magnificent. I was drawn into it. I was there with you at the prom. I was dancing, I was singing. I wanted to know if you still, you know, if he was still your boyfriend after that. I wanted to know how you broke up. I wanted to know if Carlos made friends with his cousin. It was just really amazing. Thank you so much. I will be at the next function. And if any of you can answer some of these questions, Roxanne, continue to be his girlfriend. What a lesson, what a jewel that your sister gave you, your older sister gave you. There were two jewels there.
Yeah, Belinda, she's probably on. Today is her birthday, so let's say
happy birthday, Belinda.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Happy birthday, Belinda.
Linda.
Did you continue to date this guy? Obviously not. Tell us what happened to your relationship with the guy after this?
Like I said, I was a 10th grader. He was a senior. So he graduated. No.
I wanted to kick his ass.
Yes.
Amen.
Recognize that voice. That must be Brad Sanders.
What I had on, I know, just like I said, you know, yeah, well, anyway, I felt self-conscious about what I had on. But anyway, that's okay. Whatever reason he had, it's okay. I learned my lesson, whatever lesson that was. Whatever.
I didn't mention Ellen. I wanted to say Ellen because Ellen was magnificent. Her story really moved me as well. You guys are magnificent storytellers. Ellen, what made you decide? Why did you choose to tell that story? What made you guys decide to choose these particular stories that you did tell?
That's a wonderful question. You know, Anne came with Anne's themes are always so,
yes,
they're like water. You know, they can go anywhere. And,
right.
And it just kind of popped into my head because I do remember it was such a bizarre experience to have this, you know, I'm not a visionary. I shop at Trader Joe's. I mean, you know, it was something that was so outside of my realm of experience.
So it starts with Anne, the theme. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
and these tellers who honor the theme. I'm so grateful that they really honor it.
Yes, well, you all did so well. Carlos, did you and your cousin ever?
We are not friends.
You should see this. He needed to see this.
Well, to answer your question, when she gave us the theme, I typically
Is that you, Ty? I don't see you. Is
Ty,
that
yeah.
Ty?
The thing about the theme is it always comes to the easy thoughts at first, waiting, waiting. And then I remember a moment, it was an emotional moment where something happened that I didn't expect. That's how that story came up, because I was like, oh, okay, I won't actually say I'm waiting, but you'll see the results once she says what she said. And the funny thing about that, she had saw me on a game show that I didn't tell I was on. And she said, you done a TV show? I said, yeah. I'm also on this other show. She goes, oh my God, man, that's really great. I'm funny too. Let me tell you some jokes. So she started giving me jokes to perform, none of which I could do, by the way, because we had totally different styles. But yeah, she was always in my corner. But it was interesting that story made sense once the concept, not the word itself, but the concept of waiting.
Yes.
Felt. That one rang true to me. And by the way, later on that night, Richard Pryor was at the bar. And I don't know why, but I had the nerve to go up to him again. And he said, didn't I step on your toe? And he used the other word that I didn't use tonight. I said, yeah. He said, well, I'm sorry about that, man. But you almost made me pee on myself. I'm like, dude. I think he was, he was cool. It was cool.
That's so awesome. Roxanne, I know you have a Richard Pryor story. Maybe you'll tell another time. But the theme for Waiting, Anne, was brilliant. And you all really took the theme and you embodied it and you really drove the theme home. And so Judy Francis, I know we're still waiting on this identity perplexity to fulfill itself in this time and era. But you guys, bravo to all of you. Congratulations on doing such a fabulous job.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I
really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Vanita. Great questions. I invite you to open the chat feature. We've got so many wonderful thank yous and reflections in the chat. Just thanking all of the tellers, especially thanking Anne for her leadership coming up with these themes. But does anyone else have a question for our tellers?
I'm super happy. I have a question for Dorothy. I loved your story. I loved what you were talking about. But honestly, when you put your hand over your mouth and then you took your hands away, it looked like you did magic and that you had lipstick on that you didn't have on before. Because
no, I prepare. I not only prepare for every Zoom meeting and event by putting on lipstick, but I also put on my fragrant oils. I prepare. And I just imagine you smelling in my incense, you taking me in.
I did. Oh my God, it totally worked. I thought something happened.
Yes. It was magical.
If you want a thrill, you got to go to, next time you go to a drugstore, and I've got a whole collection. Next time you go to a drugstore, just pick up the lipstick. You too, Ty. Pick up the lipstick and look at the bottom and read those names. It's a whole story. I started writing about a whole story about this, but that one about, I don't drink cheap wine. Like, I don't know what size that type was, but I had a good time. So I've got a whole collection of lipstick stories that I'll share with you another time.
Okay? I did that today.
And how about the nail polish names?
Yep, that's the other one. The other one is nail polish.
The other one is nail polish. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. You find, I teach writing. I tell people to look for the ordinary and dig into and allow it to take you to the extraordinary. And just by with these ordinary things, nail polish, lipstick, all of these things, there are extraordinary things waiting for you to like, use them, to pick them up and do all kinds of creative things with them.
Amen, Dorothy.
Yes.
I feel like I can't
Yes,
help
Mother,
but,
I'll fix you.
but do this for a second. Just look at my face.
Of course.
And then now look at my face and then look. Are you able to see? It's very subtle. Most filters are a lot, but I keep putting eye makeup and lipstick on and off.
You are, yes. If you go to the little arrow by the stop video on your computer, you can choose filter on some of your computers, choose video filter, and on the bottom right, it says Studio Effects Beta. And on there, you can give yourselves eyebrows. You can give yourselves a beard, a mustache, lipstick, the whole thing.
I was doing it a different way, but that's good too.
Really? Are you serious? Uh-oh, look out now. Look out.
It's kind of fun. It has lots of options for you. There was a quick question, Dorothy, I believe it was for you. There was looking at the bios, dancing with James Baldwin.
Yes. Yeah, there's a whole story, lots of stories. I've met all kinds of incredible people, including I shared the dance with the Dalai Lama, you know, all kinds of things like that. But I was I was sharing an apartment with a wonderful woman named Joan Sandler, who started the Black Theater Alliance and everything in New York. It was amazing. So, and there were always these people she's always giving these parties. Sometimes there was Romare Bearden in the living room, or a cast of For Colored Girls sitting around having a party. Trezana Beverly, and all of these people, Lori Carlos. And so I had done, I'm also a silversmith. I had just done a craft show that day. I was tired of talking to people I didn't know. And I closed my door, went into my room, but then my jam came on. It was Kyla Bell singing, "If you want somebody to be your slave, get you somebody new." I was like, I opened the door and I see James Baldwin. I said, "Jimmy, let's get down." And we just started rocking, and after we finished rocking, we talked a little bit. I went back into my room and said, "Okay, I'm through with famous people. I'm tired." That was it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We had many comments for Roxanne of loving the singing, loving the story, and comments on Anne's virtual sunglasses there as well, which are super cool.
Very cool. Oh my gosh, I totally fell for it.
Hey, Lisa.
We got to keep these people
How you
on our
doing?
radar. We've got to keep all these.
Nothing, I was just listening.
Yes.
I say keep all these tellers on our radar. They're worth following. They
Yeah.
all do stuff. So find out what they do and jump on in.
And what we will do also,
how do we just by your names? How do we find out? We follow Tales by the Sea.
So one way to do that is we've recorded our time together today, and we will be putting them on the Malibu United Methodist Church YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and look up Malibu United Methodist Church, give us a little bit of time to get that up. But what I'll do at the beginning of that video is I will have the PowerPoint presentation that you saw at the very beginning, and I will give longer time for each slide to be read. and so you'll be able to see contact information and bios for each of the tellers.
Aaron,
You're awesome, Aaron. You're absolutely awesome.
Aaron, do you have any idea when it will be up on YouTube?
So give me a week. Hopefully I'll get it done in the next couple of days. But if you give me a little bit of grace period, I'll have it done by the end of the week.
All the time you need. I just wanted to, find out.
And what we can do is we can send out an email to everybody and letting you know when it's up and available.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
also
so,
if the links are in the description, they're clickable too. So.
Yes.
yeah, because a couple of people couldn't get on today for some reason. They texted me and said they couldn't get on. I don't know why, but anyway.
All right,
Had
Ty.
a great crowd today, about 140 folks signing on, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But we're gonna make sure to include the link to get all the stories, because now we have several concerts that you can access with the link, right?
That is very true. You can you can always go to Malibu United Methodist Church on YouTube, and we have a folder section for all of our Ty, I like those sunglasses.
Super cool.
Where's that
We have
thing
a
again?
section
I want
for
that.
the Tales by the Sea and a section for the Poetry by the Sea as well.
Okay, Malibu United Methodist.
And then Judy Francis put her blog information in the chat.
What's up, baby boy? What are you fussing for?
What was it?
Just a reminder that if you are unmuted, we can hear everything that's going on
You can hear everything you
in
say.
your background. Oh, Ellen, nice. I like the frame.
Where's that feature again, Pastor Aaron?
So
Where's
if
that?
you-
Where do I find
If you find the stop video icon, the little camera, there's a little
Yeah.
arrow by it.
Yeah.
Click on the arrow,
Yeah.
and there should be
Yeah.
an option for choose video filter.
I like this.
And then you can choose the video filter and
Hey, what's happening?
and add different settings. And at the bottom right, you can click on Studio Effects Beta, and that will give you makeup, mustache, beard, and you can play with all of those, and they're a lot of fun.
Nice.
And if you want more, you can go to Snapchat, snapcamera.snapchat or snapchat.snapcamera, but go to Snapchat and look for their camera. And then you have
Oh my God.
like that,
Thank you, Pastor Aaron.
which is too much dress up fun.
Thank you so much.
Oh, wonderful. I like the flowers. Nice. Elena, is that the one where the gentleman, the lawyer, accidentally turned himself
No,
into a
that was an old thing that was just for a Dell webcam.
I
So
love it.
there's one little fake one that they put on Snap Camera, but there's way better ones on there.
Okay,
But-
yeah, because it was good. This poor gentleman.
I know, that was so funny. This was a fake one. This is sort of like it.
Kind of like that.
Yes.
I am not a cat.
I'm not a cat.
You can get lipstick, Aaron?
I'm sorry?
You can get lipstick?
You can get lipstick,
Yeah.
yes. If you click on choose video filter and then Studio Effects Beta, and then it goes eyebrows, mustache and beard, and then lip color. And
I don't see Studio Effects Beta.
so some programs aren't updated, aren't new enough.
Okay, go forget it. I want other people to be able to talk. That's okay.
But it's fun to play with.
Well,
All
thanks
right.
everybody for coming. Our next one is April. I think it's not till July, our next tale. In case you want to know, it's July 11th.
That seems so far away.
It does.
But will that be in person or will that be virtual or both?
Well, you know, the church is, Aaron is learning how to stream, and we can stream at the church. So we could have some live, but I also always want to be able to stream it so that people do not have to get in their car and drive forever to get here.
Right.
So
we're in the process of getting everything set up and ready for the church community to worship in the courtyard and to start to integrate some of this new tech for us to be able to do live streaming. So we're in the process, and hopefully we'll get there by July, but we will keep you all updated for sure.
yeah.
I just want to say hi, Roxanne. You guys were amazing. All of you were amazing. Roxanne, what's up from Atlanta?
Great. Hey, thanks for
Anita. I see so many
Hi,
familiar faces.
Thanks for zooming in.
All right.
Boy, you all are wonderful. You all are wonderful.
Thank you, everybody. This has been
Thanks.
fabulous.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
Pastor
it.
Aaron.
We'll see you guys soon.
Welcome.
Roxanne.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Take
Ann.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody was fabulous.
Thank you, Ann.